Once upon a time, a group of passengers boarded a seemingly ordinary airplane for what they thought would be a routine flight. Among the passengers were Sarah, a young woman traveling to visit her family, James, a businessman on his way to an important meeting, and Emily, an adventurous backpacker exploring new destinations. As the plane soared through the night sky, strange occurrences started to unfold. The lights flickered, and an eerie coldness settled over the cabin. The flight attendants tried to reassure the passengers, attributing the odd events to technical glitches. But as the minutes turned into hours, unease filled the air. Suddenly, the intercom crackled to life, emitting a ghostly voice that sent shivers down everyone's spine. It whispered cryptic messages that made no sense, warning of a dark presence on the plane. The passengers exchanged nervous glances, wondering if they were caught in some kind of elaborate prank. As the plane continued its flight, shadows danced along the walls, and chilling drafts swept through the cabin. Sarah's heart pounded as she noticed a figure seated a few rows ahead of her, wearing old-fashioned clothes. The ghostly apparition turned to face her, its hollow eyes piercing her soul. She blinked, and the figure was gone, leaving Sarah questioning her sanity. James, the businessman, tried to focus on his work, attempting to ignore the unsettling atmosphere. But his laptop screen flickered with eerie images, and the documents he was reviewing transformed into ghostly symbols. He closed his eyes, hoping to escape the nightmarish reality, only to hear faint whispers in his ear, chilling him to the bone. Meanwhile, Emily, the backpacker, decided to investigate the mysterious happenings. She tiptoed to the restroom, only to find strange symbols drawn on the mirrors with an otherworldly glow. The reflection she saw in the mirror was not her own, it was that of a long-forgotten spirit. As the flight continued, the airplane seemed to warp between reality and the supernatural realm. Passengers reported seeing spectral figures floating through the aisles, and the overhead compartments opened and closed on their own, revealing sinister shadows inside. Panic spread among the passengers as they realized they were trapped in a haunted flight. They begged the flight attendants to do something, but even they were at a loss, unable to explain the inexplicable occurrences. Finally, the plane's captain announced over the intercom, his voice trembling with fear, that they were diverting the flight to the nearest airport for an emergency landing. The passengers clung to their seats as the plane descended through turbulent skies. Upon landing, the passengers disembarked, still in shock from the terrifying ordeal. They stood in a circle, exchanging bewildered glances, trying to make sense of the nightmarish journey they had just endured. As the sun rose on the horizon, the eerie presence seemed to fade away, leaving behind only memories of the haunted flight. The passengers went their separate ways, forever bound by the inexplicable events that had unfolded in the skies. To this day, the haunted flight remains a chilling tale among air travelers, a reminder that even the most ordinary places can become a gateway to the supernatural lurking just beyond the veil of reality. And for those who were on board that fateful flight, they will never forget the chilling terror that haunted them high above the clouds. The air hung heavy with a foreboding sense of unease as passengers gathered at the gate of flight. It was a stormy night, the dark clouds swirling ominously above the airport. Despite the chilling wind and flashes of lightning, the plane's arrival was met with a somber excitement. No one could have imagined the terror that awaited them in the skies. As the last passenger stepped on board, a hush fell over the cabin. The flight attendants exchanged nervous glances, sensing something was amiss, but they attributed it to the weather. The crew had no idea that they were about to embark on a journey that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. As flight took off, strange occurrences began to unfold. Unexplainable noises echoed through the plane's narrow aisles, and flickering lights cast eerie shadows on the walls. Passengers noticed chilling drafts of cold air and swore they felt unseen hands brush against their skin. In the cockpit, the pilot struggled to maintain control as the plane seemed to take on a life of its own. Instruments malfunctioned and communication with air traffic control became garbled and distorted. They knew something was terribly wrong, but the source of the problem remained a haunting mystery. As the flight continued, passengers and crew members alike began experiencing terrifying visions. The overhead compartments opened and closed on their own, revealing ghastly specters that seemed to stare into their souls. The cabin's windows turned pitch black, showing horrifying apparitions clawing at the glass from the other side. Unaware of the horrors unfolding on the plane, the passengers were trapped inside a living nightmare. They started sharing their stories, realizing they all had a common thread. Each passenger had experienced loss, tragedy, or guilt, leading to a profound and collective sense of unease. As they compared notes, they discovered that several years earlier, flight had vanished without a trace, only to reappear with all passengers and crew missing. It was a mystery that haunted aviation history, and now they were seemingly reliving that same nightmare. Among the passengers was a seasoned airline investigator, haunted by his inability to solve the original disappearance. He delved into the history of the flight, uncovering dark secrets buried in the past. A curse had been cast upon the plane, and it was now destined to claim the souls of those who carried emotional burdens on their hearts. With each passing minute, the malevolent force aboard flight grew stronger, feeding off the fear and despair of its passengers. One by one, they succumbed to madness, their sanity slipping away like sand through their fingers. The flight attendants, once composed and professional, now looked like hollow shells of their former selves. The crew attempted to perform their duties, but the haunting manifestations had overwhelmed them, leaving them paralyzed with terror. As the plane approached its destination, the investigator pieced together the fragments of the curse's origin. In a desperate attempt to break the malevolent spell, he urged the passengers to confront their pasts, to release the guilt and pain that had tethered them to this nightmarish flight. With the investigator's guidance, the passengers began to open up about their darkest secrets. Each confession weakened the curse's grip on the plane. The specters that had tormented them began to fade, and the plane's erratic behavior slowly subsided. But the malevolent force wasn't giving up without a fight. The manifestations intensified, unleashing terrifying apparitions that taunted the passengers and crew. The investigator knew that they had to find the heart of the curse and confront it head-on. As they approached the airport, the plane was engulfed in a blinding storm. Thunder roared and lightning struck with deadly precision. The investigator rallied the remaining passengers, leading them to the cockpit. Summoning every ounce of courage they had left, they performed a ritual to break the curse. The relic glowed with an otherworldly energy as the investigator uttered ancient incantations. The plane shuddered violently as the curse fought back, but in the end it was no match for the determination of those who sought freedom from its grasp. As the ritual concluded, the plane landed safely and the storm dissipated. The investigators, passengers, and remaining crew stumbled out of the plane, physically and emotionally exhausted. The curse was broken, and the spirits that had haunted the flight were finally at rest. The investigator knew that the horrors of flight would forever linger in their memories, but they had survived, and in doing so they had set the trapped souls free. To this day, no one dares to board a flight numbered. The haunting legend of flight lives on, a chilling reminder of the terrors that can lie hidden in the shadows, waiting to emerge when least expected. As the clock struck midnight, flight descended into the darkness, carrying souls aboard a massive steel bird. The passengers were oblivious to the lurking horror that awaited them on this eerie flight. The cabin lights flickered, casting unsettling shadows on the terrified faces of those aboard. The air felt heavy with an inexplicable sense of dread. Among the passengers was a young woman named Emily, who couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. She was returning from a funeral, her heart heavy with grief. The captain's voice crackled over the intercom, but his words were distorted, making them almost incomprehensible. Despite her apprehensions, Emily tried to dismiss her unease as mere anxiety. As the flight progressed, turbulence began to rattle the plane, causing panic to spread like wildfire among the passengers. The fear in their eyes mirrored Emily's own terror. Suddenly, the cabin lights went out completely, plunging everyone into pitch darkness. The plane seemed to groan under an immense weight, and a spine-chilling voice echoed throughout the aircraft, whispering words of doom. In the dim glow of the emergency lights, shadows danced across the seats, taking on sinister shapes that seemed to move on their own. Emily's heart pounded in her chest as she gripped her armrest, her knuckles turning white. She could feel an unseen presence watching her, taunting her with its malevolence.